what about America? What about America? We've mentioned Israel, and they're very important to us. And by the way, you tell me, what's the greatest love story that's ever existed? Huh? Yeah, Jesus, the cross, and the church. The greatest love story. The second greatest love story in the Bible is in the book of Hosea. The book of Hosea. That's a mind-blowing story, isn't it? And when I say story, I mean a tale, not a falsehood, but it's the story of a people. And it's about God's love for those people. And as you were talking there, Brother Ron, I was thinking about those 3 kids that Hosea had. 2 boys and a girl. The oldest boy, God told him to give him these names. Name him Jezreel. Jezreel. That word means scattered. Scattered. But gloriously, there's a second interpretation of Jezreel, and it means planted. And so in the course of Hosea, those names get changed. Jezreel no longer means scattered, it means planted. Planted. And then there were a couple of other things. No mercy. No mercy. God looked at Israel and said, no mercy. Well, we're about to move into these last 2 studies, and we're going to see that God is in the name-changing business. Because he later changed no mercy's name to mercy. I'll show you mercy. And the third kid, God said, name him not my people. I told you that at the start of yesterday. We say it, I say it all the time. The Jews are God's people. They were, and they will be, but they're not right now. The church is currently God's people. So we're approaching some difficult times. I brought a couple of things that just helps me. I told you I don't subscribe to really any local media at all. The days are long gone that used to they at least had 2 editorial pages, and it was kind of fitting. If you read the right-hand side, it came a lot closer to the truth than what you're going to get on the left page of the editorial section of our local paper. Today, it's just gone. Anyway, I subscribe to a number of things, and I brought copies not to advertise for them. I don't care whether you get them or not. It's called the Epic Times. But I brought a few articles that just speak to my topic today. What's going on in America? Well, the front page of this particular issue is an Arizona rancher. Well, guess what their problem is? An invasion from the south. And it's telling the truth about that invasion. Here's another one, and they're just in random order. I circled it there. How ivermectin trials were designed to fail. That's a medicine. It is proven to stop COVID in its tracks. But your government, my government, decided they didn't want us to be, or want us to have access to that, and so they fraudulently put out research that said, it'll kill you. Don't take that stuff. Let's see. What else we got here? Article on letting kids be kids. That doesn't happen anymore, does it? They're being indoctrinated. This happens to be part of the editorial section out of that paper. Why the U.S. debt is unsustainable and is destroying the middle class. Goners. You mentioned Iran. We'll talk about them a little bit tomorrow, too. Iran is involved in that last big battle. And this article is Iran's time about up. Yep, it is. Their time is about up. Because our time on this planet's about up. He's coming, folks. He's coming. And here's an article in this paper. Are there 9 lives about up? We know biblically it is. Big tech. Who controls big tech in America? Huh? Yeah. China, much of it. China. And look at this headline. Big tech is consuming America's electricity and water. Big, long article. Well done research. Truth. Misplaced values. It's talking about anger, and anger stems from misplaced values because we're willing to fight over stuff that we care a lot about. I mean, back where I grew up, we'd say, them's fighting words. Well, that means you offended me on something that matters a whole heck of a lot to me, and I'm willing to go to blows with you about it. But America has become a nation of misplaced values. You won't get this in a local paper or hear it on the media. And this is not nuts talking. Cell phone radiation study halted. The study's halted after alarming results. Well, why would you halt those? Because somebody's pocketbook might be impacted. Truth. Look at there. Former CIA, this is current news. CIA officer pleads guilty to spying on behalf of China. I mean, this is in the last few weeks. Lord, help us. Oh, Lord. Diversity without virtue and shared values is chaos. Inflation, you feeling the pinch? Government spending, not corporations and oil prices, are driving inflation. Exactly. Government, our own government, wrecked us. Oh, I won't bother with that one. This is a great article. I love reading it. He says, you know what the DMV is, right? You ever have to go there? Wasn't pleasant, was it? This guy's experience is going to get his new special driver's license. And he says that a visit to the DMV is an allegory of American decadence. And it really, really is. He said, a society is decadent when the forms of its institutions survive, but the substance or purpose of those institutions has been perverted and hollowed out. That's why I kept that article. And this is the last one. Yes, the Constitution matters. Yes, the Constitution matters. Well, what's going on in America? Well, another thing that I get, the Washington Examiner. Both of these are weekly publication. You can't read it, but the headline is Normalizing Evil. That's what's going on right now in America. Normalizing evil. America's enemies exploit our divisions and social media obsessions. Yeah. Our enemies. Yeah. Cash grab. And it's got pictures of people saying, I'm a victim, I'm due, you owe me, pony up. And it's got characters of people you would recognize. Our forgotten hostages. Our forgotten hostages. We had a president who was too weak to get our hostages back from Iran. Yep. Thankfully, he got defeated in an election, and the incoming president decided to take a stand. We're weak again, and there are Americans being held in prison camps, if they're even alive, by jihadists. With friends like us, and there's old Joe, on the front cover. I don't even know why I brought that one. Oh, I've got some other stuff. Oh, no, there. The loony language of the left. They've created their own lexicon. I don't even know what they're saying anymore. But what's happening? Well, sometimes it's not pretty. And as Ron said, fortunately, prophecy is about judgment. But in every prophecy in Scripture, there's also hope. And wasn't it Jeremiah that said that God told him that, and Jeremiah was a firebrand of a preacher. But in talking about the impending judgment on the nation that he loved, he also said, God said, look, I'm going to give you a future and a hope. So I'm going to spend about 15 minutes tearing us down, because that's reality. That's where we are. But then I want us to leave with some hope. With some hope. That's what you're taught to do as a preacher, right? Punch them in the nose and then give them a hanky to wipe their nose. Well, that's a bit what we'll do. Well, Benjamin Franklin said, the longer I live, the more convincing proofs I see of the truth that God governs the affairs of men. Woodrow Wilson said, the Bible. Hadn't heard a president lately say that, have you? The Bible is the one supreme source of revelation of the meaning of life, the nature of God, and the spiritual nature and needs of men. It is the only guide of life. America was born a Christian nation. That's a president. A senator, Senator Henry Wilson, later vice president. He said, remember, your country was founded by the stern old Puritans who made the deck of the Mayflower an altar to the living God. Ronald Reagan. I've always believed that anointed land was set apart in uncommon ways, that a divine plan was placed on this great continent here to be founded by people who have a special love of faith and freedom. He's talking about America. And George Washington, our first president, said, no people can be bound to acknowledge and adore the invisible hand which conducts the affairs of men more than those of the United States. I'm convinced that old Chris, who got enough money from the King of Spain to put together a small crew and a few boats and set sail for he knew not where. And it was not by accident that he landed on the soil that you and I call home. I believe with every fiber of my being that it was divinely orchestrated in every way. So in the little outline there, I've said about prophecy that all prophecy, and I do mean all prophecy, and there's a lot of it. I told you yesterday, 27% of the Bible is prophetic. 27%. That's closing in on 9,000 verses out of the entire Bible. That's prophetic. Get this. More than half of those have already been fulfilled literally. Not in some allegorical way, not in some mystic way, but in an actual, literal fulfillment of God's Word. That's amazing. Absolutely amazing. So, four quick statements right there on the front page of your outline. 1/4, I've said again, 25% of the Bible is prophetic. At least 50% have been fulfilled. The remaining 4 prophecies focus on these themes. The rebirth of Israel. Rebirth of Israel. The realignment of nations. Realignment of nations. The rapture of the church. We talked about that yesterday. And the return of Christ. So we've begun talking about the rebirth of Israel today. the realignment of the nations we'll be talking about tomorrow, the rapture of the church yesterday, the return of Christ tomorrow. So everything that's left prophetically in the Bible is summarized in those four statements. And we're trying to give you that 35,000-foot overview to whet your appetite so that you'll be interested enough to go and dig for yourself and find some meaning and find some truth out of what God has to say. Well, the Bible says in Psalm 33:12, blessed is the nation whose God is the Lord, the people whom he has chosen as his heritage. We refer to Israel as God's chosen people. I'm telling you, America has been chosen. America has been anointed by God. Like Israel, we've chased Baal. And there was no individual god named Baal, by the way. It was a broad reference to whatever god they picked up that day. And we're no different here in our nation. We're a bunch of Baal worshipers. For some people, that's humanism. For some, it's materialism. Some, it's socialism. We make gods out of everything under the sun. But Proverbs 14:34 says, righteousness exalts a nation, but sin is a reproach to any people. So why in the world has God blessed America? I believe for one thing, and by the way, only 5% of the world's population resides in America. And yet more than 50% of the world's wealth resides in America. The luxuries, the niceties of life. We're the crown jewel in the universe that you and I know anything about. America, I believe, has been a blessed nation because we've been mission-minded. I'm not trying to sound pious, I'm just telling you the truth. Shortly after our nation was founded, we decided as a people, by the way, Baptists were at the heart of it. They were. The original Baptist church was founded shortly after the Mayflower got here in Providence, Rhode Island. A guy named John Smith was its founding pastor. He had founded the Baptist work in Amsterdam, Holland in 1605. They started immediately wondering how we can get the gospel out. And so they were sending missionaries across America, originally to the Native Americans, but they were sending them out. William Carey, one of the first missionaries on record, went to India. That was Adoniram Judson that went to India. No, it's Carey. Adoniram Judson went to Burma. But those are early missionaries. And to this day, that's been who we are. America has been a friend, as Ron just said, to both Jews and Israel. America has been a free nation, a free people. As we know, liberty without law is anarchy. And that's in our streets today. Liberty without law is anarchy. Liberty to defy law is rebellion. Liberty to defy law is rebellion. Liberty, this is what you were talking about, liberty limited by law is the cornerstone of civilization. It absolutely is. So, as George Washington said, it is impossible to rightly govern the world without God and the Bible. Well, maybe you also sometimes are wondering, well, why can't I find America in the Bible? You know, you can stretch the ropes a little bit and go over there in Ezekiel 39 and think America's there, but there's no clear answer to the question I've raised to myself. You know, where is America in all this? I can postulate a few maybes. One of those is that somehow America is caught up into that coalition of nations. And by the way, did you know that that's already underway? Yes, it is. George Bush in 2004 formed a coalition with Germany and with Britain and made some sweeping statements, and I certainly don't have time to go into that this morning, some sweeping statements about what that would include. In 2008, under Obama, it got even more put into place, because we formed an alliance, supposedly for economic reasons, with Canada and with Mexico, which became the North American Alliance. So we've got all of these backroom meetings going on, creating coalitions that may very well suggest that when the big day gets here, we're talking about that tomorrow, when that day gets here, that we're caught up in one of those coalitions. Or it could just be that we're invaded by our enemies and we're just out of the way altogether. We have a few enemies, don't we? In fact, we don't have too many friends as a nation. We really don't. It could be that we go away the way of the Roman Empire. Moral failure, moral decay, undermining the dignity and the sanctity of the home and the decay of religion. In other words, our own complacency and our own debauchery could very well be our downfall before Jesus comes. Another thought around answering that question: what about America? Depending on the number, Billy Graham said that only 50% of the average church in America is saved. I've heard a couple of evangelists, Sam Cathy, at a preacher's meeting in Birmingham. I heard him say that he believed that 90% of the average Baptist church in America is lost. It was E.V. Hill or Emmanuel Scott, one of those I heard use 75%. Either way, what I'm saying is it could be that the rapture has taken the real believers out of here, and so America is a bit startled and somewhat incapacitated by that. But biblically, I can't point you to a verse and say, well, that's good old America. So what's going on in America? Well, I made a little list. I'm going to read through that real quickly. It doesn't have a whole lot to do with the outline, but it really covers it all. Over a period of time, just sitting at my desk, I started writing this down. 10 problems in America that spell doom. 10 problems in America that spell doom. And if you want to put these down under that second broad heading, a great failure, it would be appropriate to put it there. A great failure. We have a crime problem. And as much as anything there, I'm talking about judges and prosecutors who have gone rogue. We have courts that no longer mete out justice, and justice is based on written law. They determine that it's their job not just to interpret law, but to rewrite law. And so we have a crime problem. And we have prosecutors in a lot of states, especially the large cities, who refuse to prosecute anything. The merchants are leaving San Francisco because of crime. And I'm telling you, how bad does it have to be? The PCUSA, Presbyterian Church of the United States of America, and by the way, there are 39 versions of We Baptist in America. There are 19 versions of Methodist in America. And when you look at the literature under the Reformed theology group, you've got Presbyterians and Congregationalists and some others in there. But PCUSA is one of the brands of the Presbyterian Church. And they had and if I'd been a member, I'd have left. Because they did, I don't know, 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago now, I guess, what the Methodists finally did just a few weeks ago. And by the way, you can add one to that list of Methodist brands out there. There's now the Global Methodist Church. But PCUSA was so liberal that the PCUSA church in San Francisco, I mean, how bad does it have to get that a church in downtown San Francisco says, we're out of here? We have a crime problem. We have a cultural problem. A cultural problem. One of the things that's wrecking our culture right now is called disparate impact thinking. Disparate impact thinking. And in a nutshell, here's all that means. And it's going on right now in our university. It's going on all across America. It's jumping to conclusions, making assumptions that don't exist. It's seeing something like racism or any other thing you want to. It's seeing something as systemic when it's not. And you make new rules and design new plans that address something that you say is systemic when in fact it's not. That's a problem. And it's going on in America right now. We have a commerce problem. You may own cryptocurrency. I don't. I was around when the .com mess blew up. Run the stock market for a couple of years. I'm not a fan of cryptocurrency. I'm certainly not a fan of a national debt that is reaching limits. Well, apparently there is no limit. Just print some more money. Thus the problem, like the newspaper article suggested. We have runaway inflation. And inflation is driven by the government. Don't ever believe it's any other way. And so the mess that we're in with currency, the mess that we're in with prices at the gas pump, at the grocery store, at the pharmacy, those prices have escalated because of your government. We have a commerce problem. We have a communist problem. Yeah, we do. There is probably, there's just not. There is not a state-funded university across the United States that is not feeding our children and our grandchildren a steady diet of Marxist communism. And those are the same kids that are camped in tents protesting against Israel. And those are the same kids that, if it came to it, would turn on you. And if we had a Gestapo, and we may yet, we're almost there now. But if we had a Gestapo, those grandkids of ours who have been trained under that Marxist communist professor will turn you in, just like they did in Germany, to spare their own life. We have a China problem. China owns Hollywood. Yes, it does. China owns the technology industry. TikTok. Probably anybody in here, probably nobody in here that messes with that. I bet your kids do. Your grandkids do. That's an open invitation to be exploited by the Chinese Communist Party, CCP. They'll get every piece of data you have and use it to their advantage. But we have a China problem. Now, China, I mean, they've got a big army. And they certainly have technology, all of which, by the way, they stole from the U.S. That's a fact. It's a fact. We just showed you the article there. Right in our own CIA. We have a China problem. We have a corruption problem. You can't tell me we don't. We had 120,000 more votes cast in the last presidential election than we do people registered to vote.
That's right.
Commerce in America, big business in America is rampant with corruption, under the table deals, money out the back door. In fact, how many of you have ever watched the movie Christmas Vacation? Yeah. You remember the scene where Cousin Eddie has shown up in the old dilapidated RV, and there's a scene with him. He's got his bathrobe on, he's got his lit cigar, and he's standing out at the curb with a drain, and he's got what in his hand? A sewer drain. And he's pumping the sewage out of the RV into the sewer pipe. I was trying to think of a good analogy the other day for a Washington politician, and I thought of Cousin Eddie in that sewer pipe. It's perfect. It's perfect. Everything that comes out of their mouth is as though it's coming out of a sewer pipe. That's where we are. That's the depth of the corruption in America. Unreal. We have a corruption problem. We have a children's problem. Every month in America, 600 children disappear. Every month in America, 600 children disappear. And many of them are being sold into slavery, prostitution, drugs. And our children are being indoctrinated in the most un-American way. We're being attacked by the transgender movement. The public education agenda is rampant with anti-family, anti-church, anti-Bible principles and ideas. We have a courtroom problem. We've seen it recently. The weaponization of the Justice Department, the Department of DOJ. They can knock your door down any night, not have to give you a reason, put you in cuffs, haul you off, and you might get a trial. If you do, it'll be a farce because they've already determined the outcome. We have a courtroom problem. We have a communication problem. That's why I subscribe to that stack of stuff right there on the floor. It's one of a few places I found that I can get halfway at the truth as to what's going on in the world. But the press today is no more a free press. Remember when we had two papers here in town, the Times, and the Chattanooga Times were owned by the New York Times, so you know I wasn't going to take that sucker. But the other one was called what? The Chattanooga Free Press. Free Press. And by the way, when they merged, that was the column over the right-hand page of the paper. But there's no free press anymore. Don't believe it. The Dems and the progressives control the mainstream media. We have a citizenship problem. And I'm alliterating with all these C's, and so the problem is really a non-citizenship problem, but I needed another C. Just kidding. But it is. It's a citizenship problem. We have people who are not citizens being treated better than the citizens. There's a little meme I saw on Facebook, and it's this guy staring at you when it pops up, and he says, if you're better off today than you were 4 years ago, then you look at the bottom, it says, you must be an illegal. We have a citizenship problem. We have a church problem. We have a church problem. And the clock is ticking.
Yes, it is.
And I alluded to a few of them a minute ago. We've got the Methodists that have just split. They've got a horrible mess left on their hands. The Presbyterian Church USA, don't confuse them with the others. There's PCA, there's evangelical Presbyterians. The evangelical Presbyterians are more conservative than we are. But by the way, while I'm on that topic, our own convention is all riled up over women.
Yes, it is.
You know, that's not new stuff. You see, we Baptists at one time were called either General Baptist or Peculiar Baptist. Well, most Baptists I know are peculiar. But what they really meant by that, I mean, you were either Calvinistic, thus particular, you believe that grace was only for a chosen one, or you were a General Baptist and you believe that God has unlimited grace intended for us all. Well, I'm one of those General Baptists. Well, here's what's going on with the women issue. The particular Baptists have gained control of 3 of our seminaries, and they're cranking out Presbyterian preachers.
Yes.
I know y'all are Presbyterians, but they're cranking out Calvinists. And Calvinists of the strictest nature would never think of ordaining a woman. The first woman ordained in a Southern Baptist church took place in 1964. The first Baptist church to ever ordain a woman was in the late 1600s. In the middle 1700s, right into the mid and 1800s, Baptists were commonly ordained, including Baptist churches. And so, time has flip-flopped. There's a louder group gaining control. And so in June, when our group meets, they'll stomp around and make some decisions and say, we're going to do this or that. But just know that's not the Baptist heritage that actually exists. But we've got a church problem. And finally, we have a credibility problem. A credibility problem. Who can you trust? Who can you trust? Well, my time is just about up, but I want you to turn to Amos. I'm just going to read this. Because my first point there was a time of great famine. And what I've just been describing under all those failures is because of the famine. And this, it says in chapter 8, verse 1. And this is what the Lord showed me. Behold, a basket of summer fruit. And he said, Amos, what do you see? He said, well, a basket of summer fruit. Then the Lord said, look at the next verse. The end has come. The end has come. I'm telling you, folks, we're at the door. We're at the door. The end has come. He said, the songs of the temple shall become wailings in that day. They're thrown everywhere. There's silence. And then look on down in verse 9. No, I'm sorry, verse 11. Behold, the days are coming, declares the Lord God, Amos 8:11, when I will send a famine on the land. Not a famine of bread nor a thirst for water, but of hearing the words of the Lord. A famine of preaching. A famine of prophecy. Israel went 400 years without a prophet. When Malachi spoke his last word, it was not until John the Baptist showed up out in the wilderness that they heard from God again. America is about to face a famine, a great famine. And that famine is coming because of our great failures. But I said I would end with some hope. Well, on your outline, it's actually under a time for the future. You know, where I grew up, we'd get in a little scuffle, Ron, you've done it, and you'd say to the other guy, put up or shut up. Well, that's kind of what this future's about. It's time to wake up, it's time to speak up, it's time to be prayed up, and it's time to put up. Wake up, shake up, speak up, be prayed up, because there's time for a great fire. It's not too late for revival, folks. It's not too late. Listen to what it says in Isaiah 9:2. The people who walked in darkness have seen a great light. Those who dwelt in a land of deep darkness. Don't you think we're there? America's in a land, we've become a land of deep darkness. But look what it says. Those who dwelt in a land of deep darkness, on them the light has shone. Glory. Revival is possible. What will it take? It'll take people praying. It'll take preachers preaching. And the outcome will be the restoration of God's people, the regeneration of the lost people, and the transformation of those who are willingly minded to allow the Holy Spirit to engulf them. Lord, may it ever be so. God bless.